Proportional Response. Book 1, Chapter 25, Part 1, Closing Arguments. Hannibal walked towards the council chambers with grim determination and tired hope in both his hearts. Today is the day. This time, for sure. Finally. He reflected on the time since he last thought that, and cringed a little inside. 2 years. Over 2 years of war. Now I know why the Cold War Alcanfistration engineers pushed the humans into was such an evil thing. They survived it for decades, and after less than 2 years of it, we have entire populations willing to bandy around words like final solution and even genocide. No one is really talking about taking such a step, but the fact that civilized races are even able to discuss it. Of course, it hasn't exactly been a Cold War. There have been skirmishes here and there on both sides, but the psychological damage done to our cultures, involved or not, will take at least a generation to unravel. Duchess Euro squeezed his arm and he patted her hand. She has been such a help through all of this, a rock on which I could lean. If I hadn't gotten to go home and visit my fiancée a few times during this, I would have gone mad, of course, but she has been so good for me between those visits, and I would have gone just as mad without her. Home. That one word echoed in his mind. He didn't know when he stopped thinking of the embassy as home, but sometime in there he did. It is funny. I have spent less than 2 months worth of days, total, in the palace, and years here. Yet, I guess it is true. Home is with your heart bond. Thoughts of his love, cavorting with her siblings, and other such joys filled his heart for a few moments. Then he ruthlessly banished them. Soon. Provided I can keep my focus on this day, probably the most important in my life. Heavens and hells, possibly the most important in the life of the entire League. Today, we pivot history. Today, the Penigra is out of his damned tokens. Bits of the last 2 years flashed through his mind, less as memories and more like ghosts of emotions. Reading casualty reports when an attack or a defense failed, cautioning restraint to various neutral or semi-hostile to humans ambassadors. They pulled off a decisive victory. Kaz Orgolna going off on speaking tours in the Empire, and even other neutral nations, to hold up morale. The humans, though, I expected they'd be deep into war weariness like the Arabso and the Thimiac, but they aren't. Judging by their entertainment, they have a sort of sardonic sense of humor about the whole thing, and barely consider it a war at this point. He took a deep breath as he entered the council chambers. He didn't know what to expect, and found a quiet, sober atmosphere with an underlying current of excitement and belabored hope. Focus, Hannibal. Now is the cusp, when all of the plans, the bloodshed, the tears, the work, and the toil come due. The Penigra is out of tokens, and he knows it. In the next few hours, we will either free the League, or what? He decided he didn't want to consider or what. Things can't go back to how they were, not now. For all of everyone's complaining about this war's disruption of economies and trade, everyone is actually doing slightly better than before. It doesn't feel like it, because of the fear and miasma caused by the fighting, but lifting the Olten boot off the necks of our collective nations has brought about an increase in prosperity, even in these troubled times. Walking that back won't happen. No, focus. Job at hand. We still have to get through this vote, and any last-minute surprise that Zoltans may have tried to cook up. He reviewed the plan in his head again, and looked up at Kaz as the man came in and sat down next to him. He is all smiles, and one would think he wasn't worried at all. The lines are there, but only slightly more than usual. He really isn't all that concerned. I guess he shouldn't be. We have prepared enough for all of this, and our contingencies have contingencies of their own. Still, after all this time, I am sure these Oltans have something else planned. Maybe even with the Penigra somehow. Wait, speaking of, where are the Zoltan and Penigra ambassadors? Eldia walked with her man, her hand resting in the crook of his elbow. He seemed happy, but sober and determined. She felt like her skin might start to glow at any moment. At long last, we will oust Kilintar, oust the Zoltans, and start making this league live up to its promises. We will. What is the Zoltan ambassador doing down here, so near the entrance to the human platform? Why is he coming this way? The undersized Zoltan looked nervous. She then looked beyond the lizard and realized something else she'd missed in her daydreaming about the coming session. Everything is far too busy. All, or nearly all, first-rank ambassadors are in the council chamber now. So are a lot of their second and thirds. Yet, there are an awful lot of people walking around here in far too big a hurry, and far too many of them are trying to get doors to council platforms open. What is... Zoltan stepped up to Henry and spoke with rushed words. He has my family. Freed them, got them away from her. Free, I can join them. He said there was a price, though, that I had to deliver a message to you, but it makes so little sense. He was only able to get a handful of words to me on a piece of paper, though, so I guess that makes a little sense. But, still. The man waved a hand as if warding off troublesome insects. He is obviously giddy about something, or very drunk, or both. I can't imagine what. Still, something about all of this is wrong. The Zoltan continued. The note said to tell you my orders when I leave. So, I am. There, now you know. The man turned to leave. He said he'd give my family back to her if I didn't tell you. Oh, wait, I need to actually tell you, don't I? The Zoltan turned halfway back to face them and stood still, even though he seemed to still be moving. As the Zoltan spoke, a human guard, one Eldia recognized as a lower-level enlisted man, hurried up to Henry, handed him a piece of paper, and stood there with his hand on his weapon. Henry took the note as the Zoltan spoke in hushed tones that Eldia could barely hear. My orders are to leave. Get out of the council complex and off this planet while I still can. You should too. With that, the ambassador turned and nearly sprinted away. Eldia considered chasing after him or trying to send the human with the message after the fleeing Zoltan. Henry's soft string of explicatives froze her in her tracks, however. He grabbed one of his guards, one carrying a rifle, pulled the man close, slapped the piece of paper into his hand, whispered in his ear, then gave him a somewhat undignified shove. The soldier's eyes had grown wide in response to whatever Henry said, and the man took off towards an upward ramp at a dead run, dodging sapients of all shapes and sizes. Henry's other guards stood in confusion. Eldia looked in Henry's eyes and saw something she thought she'd never see there. Fear. Real, hard fear. But she had no idea why. Henry pulled out his phone and hit a single button as he started walking towards the council chamber. She recognized the colonel's voice, but Henry interrupted before the man could finish a single word. Code Sparta. Fire sale, Colonel. Ambassadors in the council chamber will have to go last. We have got to make this vote happen, and God help us if we run out of time. Damn it, Colonel, I am not in a secure location, and we have no time. Execute. With that, Henry hung up, and Eldia noticed that his guards had all taken the slings, straps, or other guards off their weapons. She heard a series of pinging sounds. Then, they seemed to come from every single human she saw. The effect of that ping caught her off guard. Each grabbed their phone in a near panic, glanced at it, then leaned forward to speak, with great urgency, to whomever happened to be nearby. In just a few moments, a wave of what seemed like contained panic swept through the halls, and people began to move with even greater speed. Henry gestured to one of his guards, then to her. Corporal, take her to the embassy, and... She rounded on him and tried to stare him down, but he squeezed her hand 3 times in a precise motion. The signal. Something in her mind detached at that moment, and she felt almost like she'd begun floating. Eldia thought she understood fear. She'd jumped from aircraft, skied down steep mountains, and basically done anything she could find that would get her hearts pumping. She'd even been in a couple of firefights, not by choice, of course. Those had been unpleasant, but she'd gotten through them without too much trouble. She knew fear, understood it, rode it, treated it like an old friend. Until now. Seeing real fear in the wall of iron she'd fallen in love with, that shook her to her core, put a fear in her that made her want to quake in her boots, curl up in a trembling ball, and run screaming all at the same time. She thought of skydiving, of skiing, and tried to get on top of the feeling as she did then, but it didn't work. The signal, her lover's words that night, came back to her. "If we are ever somewhere and I give this signal, I need you to swear to me. Promise that you will do what I say without hesitation or question. It means that something deadly is coming, and I won't be able to deal with it properly if you don't get away from it." He admitted he knew she could fight, and that wasn't the point. "It will mean that I don't know if the thing can be fought, and I need you safe so I can deal with it. I swear, darling, that I won't give that signal unless absolutely necessary." But in the end, she'd agreed, mostly because she thought it would never happen. Now, it had. The signal. The memory had flashed through her mind in an eye blink. She looked at Henry, at the worry and fear in his eyes, and knew the only thing she could do to reduce that fear was to do as he asked. So she summoned the scraps of her courage, reached up to snag the back of his head, pulled him down for a quick kiss, and let the human soldier lead her away.